Today we're going to talk about the ASL 104 Bluetooth Atom Head Array. We're going to get into the specs and the features of the head array in a few minutes, but first I'd like to share just some general information about the head array. So the first thing I want to tell you about are the sensors themselves. So contained within the head array there are 3 proximity sensors placed in each of the pads. One in the forward pad, one in the right, one in the left. These pads can be configured differently on the back, which you'll see later on in this video. There are some plugs and you can change your forward pad, for instance, to the right pad or the left pad if for some reason you need to have forward on the side. It's completely customizable. You can move these around. As it comes standard from us, you're going to get forward, right, and left. Okay? Proximity sensors do not require any force. They're an electronic switch and they are activated by the conductive nature of your skin or your head or anything conductive that touches them. So again, you get near them and the chair will move. You don't press, you don't have to hold, you don't have to press and keep something closed. Okay? So with this in mind, the head array was initially developed for individuals with tone. Most commonly, we were looking at those individuals with cerebral palsy. Because the sensors require no pressure, they are more able to access the sensors without those big extension patterns and those big bursts of tone pushing into switches, trying to hold on them so that they can make the chair go. We don't see that with sensors once they have a little bit of experience driving with it. So this allows them to drive with much more success, and over time they become very, very successful drivers. There are 2 different types of head arrays that Adaptive Switch Labs manufactures. The first one on the right-hand side is the ASL 104 Standard Atom Head Array. The one on the left is the ASL 104 Proton Head Array. The first head array I want to talk to you about is the ASL 104 Standard Bluetooth Atom. This head array has a back pad and 2 side pads, forward, right, and left. The adjustments to this head array are made here to adjust the hinge coming in and out. A single 5/32 Allen wrench, and they swing in and out to adjust for distance. You also have the ability to adjust these hinges so that that pad can move further out or further away from the back pad. All right, you have the standard ball socket on the back that allows you to have the adjustability up and down, tilting side to side, moving all around. All right, so that's the Atom 104 Standard Head Array and its adjustments. The next one I want to show you is the Proton. The Proton has a couple different adjustabilities. First of all, the biggest difference is that you'll see is there's a little lever right here, and when I press that, these will swing away, and then they will latch back into place. Swing away, latch back into place, okay, so they don't move around. Now, there is overall probably more adjustability to the Proton than your standard. I'm going to sit this down here for a minute so you guys can see. But the adjustability here is 1 Allen bolt here, top down, right into where that joint is, and you loosen it, and this moves up and down, in and out, all around. Okay? So that one gets adjusted there, tightened down easily so it doesn't move. The next adjustment are the adjustability of the pads themselves. That's done with a 7/16 crescent wrench. I'm going to slide this on, give it a turn, quarter turn, and the pad moves all around. Okay, it too is on a ball joint, so you have pretty infinite adjustability. Slide it back on, give it a quarter turn, and they're back to being tight again and not moving. So you've got the adjustability of the pad itself. You can slide it in and out on this bar, up and down, so you can get it underneath people's glasses, above or below their glasses, in front of their ear, behind their ear, down around their cheek, up high at their temples. You have a lot of adjustability there with this particular head array. just like the other one, the standard, it has the ball socket on the back here. So I can get it good. There we go. We've got the ball socket on the back there for that adjustability as well, for tilting and moving it in and out. For folks who need additional support at their occiput, we also manufacture it's called an element, and it is the occipital support that we can add on to any of the head arrays that we manufacture. So that's an additional piece, this occipital support here. Again, it is mounted too on a ball socket, so you have complete adjustability. You can separate it up and down, in and out, independently of the head array itself. Okay, so that's your element that you would add on to any of the standard or the proton head array. Next, we're going to talk about the Atom technology itself. The Atom is contained in this box that is mounted on the back of the head array. You can see it's in a rubber cover, and it has some features in it that really sets the ASL head array apart, and so I want to go over some of those for you now. So the first thing I want to talk to you about is the power button. This is an attendant power on-off that will turn the head array on. You can see the red light came on. 2 beeps and it's off. So what that means is, while the head array is on, the chair is moving. When I turn it off, the chair doesn't move even though I'm up in that head array. So it allows the client to sit up in their head array and rest without being concerned that the chair is going to move, and they aren't powering the chair down. You can see out in the distance here that the chair is on, but the head array is not moving. Okay, so that's the power, attendant power switch. All right, there's a little rubber door here that has underneath it, it has a magnet in it, so when you bring it around, it'll just stay open and attaches to the side here. And underneath here, you're going to see several different little dip switches and lights. The first thing I want to talk to you about are these lights, and you'll see that when I touch the back pad, the light comes on. Touch the right pad. You can't really see it on the left because it's blocked by that bar, but those are the indicators to let you know if the sensors are actually working. So even though the head array is off, those lights will activate. So you can see if somebody says, hey, my right sensor is busted, it's not working. If you touch it, you know that it's working. It also lets you use it for adjustments. So when somebody's in this headrest, as you are bringing the side pads in or out, if you're in that proton with those swingaways and you're trying to get them just right, you can see when they move to their right if they're actually making contact with the pad or not, or if they're still, in the case of this, on both. Okay, so you can figure that out and use it for adjustability and getting the adjustments just set up just right. So that's really that's been really beneficial and really useful. Okay, this dial right here is a potentiometer, and I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute, related to some switch ports that we have on here. But that little dial it takes a Phillips head screwdriver, and you turn it clockwise to lengthen the time and counterclockwise to shorten the time. Now up here, I'm going to zoom in here for you guys, and because we're going to talk about these dip switches. And here we go. I'm going to get up really close to those dip switches, and you'll see there are 6 dip switches. That first dip switch allows there's a port right down here. See these arrows here? These are the micro USB plugs from the pad. So here's your forward pad, your right pad, and your left pad. This one over here is reverse, or it could be mode switch. So if somebody needed a sensor, a powered switch, a proximity sensor, rather than an ultralight or an egg switch, they could plug a sensor in there, and you would move this dip switch to have it either be reverse or have it be a mode change. So they could have a hot reverse that's a sensor, or it could be the mode change. If it's off, it's a reverse. If it's on, it's a mode change. Okay? The port number 3, or I'm sorry, the dip switch number 3 is the dip switch that will allow the head array to be powered on at the startup of the chair or off when the chair starts up. So you'll see that right now, if I were to, and I'm going to zoom out, if I power this chair down, sorry, that was fast, power the chair down, turn it off. When I turn it on, you can see that that head array came on. Okay, if I turn dip switch 3 down, or off, I'm sorry, and I do it again, shut the chair off, power it back up, you'll note that the head array did not come on. So the usefulness of that is really if you've got someone who you're transferring in that chair and you don't want them to, that chair's on and they make a transfer into the chair, and as soon as they get in, that head touches the head array and the head array takes off. So in the case of kids, a lot of times we want to be able to turn it on and tell them, okay, you're ready to drive, I'm turning it on, and then we turn it on and it goes. But when that chair's powered up, the head array stays off. So that dip switch number 3 is pretty handy for that. And then dip switch number 6 is a beep. So right now, no noise. When I turn it on, hear the beeping? So that is, every time I touch that switch, I get a little chirp. Some folks felt as though auditory feedback on these sensors was important, and so there is a beep in there, and if you don't want it on, which it does kind of get annoying because every single time you touch a pad you get a little chirp, you can slide that dip switch 6 up and that will turn it off. So that is the dip switches. I'm going to come down here and we're going to talk a little bit about there's 2 other ports under here that unfortunately are really hard to see. I'm going to see if I can show them to you. I got to move the camera though. So get out here. I'm going to come around here. Okay, on this side. And now I'm going to zoom back in and you will see 2 ports on here right under that attendant switch. There we go. User port and the mode port. The user port does the same thing as the power port. So, turning it on, turning it off there, but your client can have it mounted out and they can do it. So I'm hitting an ultralight switch that's mounted on the swing away. So they can hit it with their chin, turn their head array on or off themselves. Okay, the mode port is another jack, that's 1/8 inch mono jack for a mode change. It does a single function. It does not have a short and a long for links, but it does a single function. Can be the next function. It can move into seating if you're in somebody else's electronics, whatever you need. So those 2 ports are pretty important there. Now, back to that potentiometer that I was telling you about. When I hold this switch for a long period of time, you hear that long beep. That long beep is putting the head array into Bluetooth mode. And you can tell it's in Bluetooth because right now it's flashing and it's not paired to anything. The length of time that you hold that switch is dictated by the potentiometer. So if I want that to hold it for a really long time, then I would turn that little white dial that's, sorry for the wobbly thing, back over here. I'm going to turn this clockwise, and that will lengthen the time, and I can turn it down and it'll be really quick. So however long you want to hold that switch to get into that Bluetooth mode is dictated by this potentiometer, and you do that with a Phillips head screwdriver. All right, so that's kind of everything on the Atom part of the technology. It's in Bluetooth mode right now. You would at this point pair it to one of our receivers, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. We have a 557.3, which is for switches, scanning for communication devices, things like that. We have a mouse emulator, and we have the Tekla. And those 3 things will pair to this head array through Bluetooth. When it's paired, that red light will be solid. Okay, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. So the accessories that attach via Bluetooth to the ASL 104 Bluetooth Atom, either the Proton or the standard head array, are the following devices. You have an Atom wireless mouse emulator, a 558, that plugs in via USB into any computer, and with a long press of that user port switch, you will put their head array in Bluetooth, and it pairs to this and connects, and then your head array can move the mouse on the screen. Moves it in a 3-quadrant fashion, meaning a typical setup is moves it right left, toggles right left. The back pad will toggle the up and down directions, and then your left pad is your click. Your 557, which is, you can see it's got some mono jacks on here. Those go into like communication devices or any switch operated device. It will go into the Xbox adapted controller, or any other switch adapted thing. It needs power to the USB, and that will pair to a communication device or any of those other kinds of devices that I just mentioned. Again, a long press on that switch, and you're communicating using your head array that's plugged into that communication device. The top, you see a Tekla. This is a Tekla E. This device connects to the head array, and then it also then pairs with mobile devices, either iOS or Android. It connects to up to 8 different devices. So again, long press on your user port switch, and you are connected to that Tekla, and then that Tekla is running the phone. So if your phone rings and you want to answer it quickly, you press on that switch, and you're immediately in switch control using the head array. The head array only attaches to one of these at any given time. So you can't have all 3 of them going and doing that at the moment. So you kind of got to pick which one you want to do. But the fact that you have Bluetooth, wireless, immediate access to phones, communication devices, and computers with the press of a single button, and no navigation of any electronics whatsoever. So it doesn't matter what electronics you're using, you are bypassing the electronics and going straight out through that Atom box. So the accessories are pretty exciting, and really, again, give us a pretty unique access to computers and phones and communication devices in a real quick way. So those are the accessories: 558, 557, and the Tekla E. We've got quite a few switch options here for your mode changes. The first one up here is your ultralight switch. It's a nice small light touch, small profile overall switch. Great to mount up on a swing away around the face. It's not super obtrusive for the client, doesn't take up a lot of space. And we also have the egg switch, which can also be mounted on a swing away up near the head if you want that for a mode switch. You can also mount that on this armrest bracket that will clamp on underneath the armrest. And then the egg switch has some screws that mount and fit right in there. They go on perfectly, and then that sits on there, and then you can do that. Or we have a sensor that goes in that port. Remember I told you earlier about that micro USB port, so that if you want a mode switch or a reverse, you can use a sensor. So there is a sensor available as well. So those are our basic switches. Any of the mechanical switches would work, but this has been a super popular switch, that ultralight, and our egg switches are around in various colors. So those are your switch options to plug into the Atom head array. When it comes to mounting mode switches, user switches, or any other switch you may need for your chair, whether it be seating or otherwise, we've got a couple options. We make what's called a dual swing away. Whether this is on a Proton or the standard head array, we can attach this to the back, and you have your switches that swing out of the way when you need them. There can be positioned then, they come around to your cheeks, or move them around wherever you need them. They swing away for easy transfers out of the way. Okay, so this is your dual. You can put one, you can use one or both of them. Okay. For those folks that are using a Proton, you might see that it comes with what's called a quad swing-away system. 4 swing-aways. 2 of them are used for the driving sensors. The other 2, again, for the mode, user port, tilt, seating, whatever you need to use it for. In this system, all 4 obviously swing out of the way for transfers, and then they latch into place and stay very stable for use. Okay, this allows everything to be neatly mounted around your head and available for easy access. Okay, if you don't need a mode switch at your head, or you don't want, or you would like one mounted, you know, somewhere down around your arm so that you can hit with your hand or your arm, we make what's called an armrest mount. There's a curve in here. It mounts onto some tubing. There's a screw right here. You loosen that. This gets wide enough that it slides on the tubing. It also adjusts this. This becomes loose and you can slide this up and down or tilt it in this direction. Okay? You'll see some holes in here and some grooves. Our egg switch comes with some holes in here that are threaded, and it also comes with a couple screws. This mounts right onto this, and it sits on here like this. Mount it down at the end of the armrest, and your patient can push into it or tap into it for access to their modes or whatever they need to do. Okay? So we've got several mounting options to talk about for your mode, your user switches, tilt, seating functions, whatever somebody may need. The armrest mount, okay, the quad swing away, or the dual swing away. Thanks for watching the video. I hope it was helpful to you and that I've covered the basic questions that you might have about the head array. The features, the specifications have been thought about very carefully, and we're really proud of the head array and the flexibility and the customization that can be done with this to accommodate a wide range of patients' needs. Over time, we've discovered that many other diagnoses other than cerebral palsy have benefited from how flexible and customizable the head array is. Those diagnoses that have weakness as a primary characteristic can benefit significantly from this head array with some simple modifications. So we make something called a remote atom that will be featured in another video, and if you're working with that population, you might want to check that out. It allows us to put switches in different places. We put some at the head, not in the back pad, maybe down at their legs or their arms, some things like that. And so it allows us to do that as well. So that's another thing you might want to check out through the website. Additionally, we make a battery pack that this head array can be powered from. So if you are somebody who is not in a power chair but sitting in a manual chair and still needs wireless access or Bluetooth access to your phones, your communication devices, computers, you can still use a head array with a battery pack and access those things wirelessly. As always, if you have any further questions about who can benefit from this head array or how you would use it, please feel free to give us a call. The phone number at Adaptive Switch Labs is 1-800-626-8698, or check us out at www.asl-inc.com.